There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see.
Hello. The City of London is home to dozens of small charming gardens that are popular with visitors and office workers alike, but we don't tend to associate the City of London with wide open green spaces. Well, this is a fallacy because it's actually responsible for several, including Epping Forest and Hampstead Heath. Perhaps less well known is Kenley Common. Located on the edge of Croydon, it was purchased by the corporation back in 1833. Even then they realised, with the growing city, that its citizens were going to need green lungs, places where they could rest and relax. Well, it has to be said that during the 1940s, there wasn't a lot of rest or relaxation available on Kenley Common because it was home to RAF Kenley, which played an important part in the Battle of Britain and the defence of London. RAF Kenley was home to dozens of RAF airmen and fighter pilots, but also to women. Although women weren't involved in combat, they did work as pilots for the Air Transport Auxiliary delivering planes. But most of the women working at Kenley were WAAFs, volunteers in the Women's Auxiliary Airforce, and they carried out a number of roles there, including catering, administration, working as mechanics, manning radar stations, and most famously, plotting movement of aircraft in the control room. Whether they were in the air or on the ground, Kenley was a very dangerous place to be. It was constantly prone to attack. One WAAF recalls that just 1 week after arriving, she experienced this. Enemy aircraft strafed the airfield with machine gun fire. She was able to jump into a dugout and take shelter, but when she emerged, it was a scene of devastation, including the remarkable sight of an enemy fighter that crashed nose first into the airfield. The worst attack on Kenley came on August the 18th, 1940, now known as the Hardest Day. This was when the Luftwaffe decided to launch a decisive attack. The hope was that they could stop the Battle of Britain once and for all. Bombs rained down on RAF Kenley and its close neighbours Croydon and Biggin Hill. There were casualties and wounded, including one WAAF who was seriously injured while she was working in the sickbay at the airfield. However, the very next day, RAF Kenley was up and running. The Luftwaffe had failed. Life was not all grim for the women based at Kenley. They managed also to have quite a lot of fun. Many were single women. They were billeted together in large houses on the edge of the airbase, and they spent a lot of time together. The location was good. They could get into central London and they could get to the coast. One WAAF recalled that she and her friends were particularly keen on jumping on their bicycles and heading into Croydon to catch a film. The only problem was getting back. She felt that the journey back on a bicycle in the blackout was particularly fraught and almost as dangerous as being bombed at the airfield. Now, the women came from different backgrounds and from all over the country, but some were Londoners. And really their work became more urgent in a sense, because after the Battle of Britain, Kenley was in the last line of defence before enemy bombers reached London. So in a sense, they really were helping to directly defend their loved ones. Now, the women at Kenley also experienced things and picked up skills that they'd never have had the chance to acquire during peacetime. But when the war finished, most returned to a very ordinary civilian life. But some of the women who were WAAFs never quite lost the taste for flying and for aircraft. And interestingly, if you go to Kenley today, you can still take to the air because there's a small aerodrome and it's home to the Surrey Hills Glider Club. That club was reformed in 1946 by a remarkable woman called Anne Welsh, who'd been a pilot in the Air Transport Auxiliary during the war. And Kenley Common itself is well worth a visit. Apart from being a very attractive open space, it still has the remains of Kenley Aerodrome. It's the most intact surviving Battle of Britain airbase in the country. And a group called Kenley Revival work hard to preserve its heritage. You can go and visit the Spitfire pens where the planes were kept, and perhaps also visit the memorial to the men and women who worked there. Thank you.
Tomorrow, just you wait and see.